I guess I'll get started. There's another chat. Um, incremental materialized views, less. Let me see. Let me try to remember what the question was. Can you remind me? I thought I sent you an email, but I don't. Okay, yeah, remind me. Thank you. I thought I had replied to all your questions, but maybe I didn't. I'm not sure. No. Okay. Yeah, just remind me at the end. Thank you. Okay. All right. So we'll get started with this session. So this is the latest installment in the small webinar series, just giving little introductions to particular focused topics. This is the last webinar of 2015. So I have not yet made up the list of webinar topics for 2016. This is another opportunity. If anybody wants to vote for a topic, let me know. My email, as you know, is david.fass@inetsoft. We're kind of talking about maybe going in the direction of talking more about data-oriented stuff, data manipulation, data mashup, which would take us more in the direction of data worksheets than we've done previously, but nothing is final, and I don't have a list of topics yet. So if you had something that you wanted to see as a webinar, even if you've suggested it before, by all means, suggest it again, and I'll throw it into the mix and see what then we discuss it over here and see what we want to cover. Okay, so I am recording this in case anybody's going to remind me to record it. It is being recorded, should be posted in a couple days or so. So let's get started. Today's topic is freehand tables. It's kind of an advanced topic. Not everybody will be doing freehand tables in a dashboard, but they can sometimes come in handy. So we'll do a couple of examples. In particular, we'll do these two examples. Hopefully you can see my screen. So the example up at the top here, this is not a single dashboard. This is basically I put two dashboards on a single slide. So up at the top over here, this is, I think, something similar to what we did actually in the last webinar. I think at the end I kind of whipped up a little example if recollection serves. Yeah, so we'll take a look at that, and then we'll do a little bit more, not necessarily more involved example, but just another kind of example to get exposure to doing freehand tables. So before I go on, I'll just mention, as I always do, that I can't hear anybody talking because you're all muted. So if you do want to talk to me, type in the chat box or the question box, and I'll see it pop up on my screen. Okay, so let's take a look at this first example, and let's first of all see why we would need to do a freehand table in the first place. Hopefully you can see this on my screen. This is essentially a crosstab up at the top, so it's got category as the row header, and then it has a breakout by region, USA East and USA West, and then it also has a breakout by day of the week. Now, the reason that we can't do this as a plain crosstab is that we'll see that there's no way to make two independent groupings like this with the region and day of the week. So first, let's see what the problem is, and then we'll see how we can address it with a freehand table. So I'm going to my user portal, and I'll open up Visual Composer, and I'll create a new view sheet based on our sample data model. And so first I'll just create the basic crosstab, and in general it's a good approach to to try to get as close as you can to your final result before you switch to working on a freehand table, right? Although you can create a freehand table from scratch, right? There is a freehand table here, so you can drag in a freehand table, and that will open the freehand table editor, and you can build up a freehand table completely from scratch. Generally, it's probably better to try to get as close to your final result without using the freehand table editor. In other words, just use the regular crosstab or regular table, and then convert it to a freehand component. So that's the approach that I'm going to take here. So first of all, I'm going to add a crosstab, and we'll, we've seen crosstabs before. I think we probably had a webinar on crosstabs. So none of this should be that, raise any eyebrows or anything, but I'll put the product category as the row header. And then as the measure, I'll put the product total. and then region, customer region as the column header. And so here's a pretty basic crosstab row header, column header, and a measure, and it looks like this. Okay, so so far pretty mundane. Now here's where the problem comes in, because if we look at the slide, then what I want next, right? So I've got this part here on the left. That's all good. The categories and breakout by region, USA East, USA West. Now I want over here a breakout. Oops. By day of the week, and then my, just to make this a little bit more sensible, what I did is in the example here, I put a range slider down here so you could select a range of dates, and then you would see basically what are the sales. You could compare sales on Sunday versus Monday for the entire range of dates that you select, right? So that's what I'm after. The question is, how can I do that in a crosstab? How can I get a date field over here? And the answer is that I really can't. There's no way to do it. Right, so if I open up the crosstab editor, my instinct here would be to put the date field, somewhere up here, because I want it as a column header. So I would go, drag the order date field here and drag this in, and maybe put it over here under the region field, right? And so you can do that. You can have multiple column headers in a crosstab, but basically what that's going to do is it's going to create a nested hierarchy. So if I press apply here, then what I'll end up with is basically I have my two regions. Right, so there's USA East, USA West, and under each region, I've got it broken out by years. Now I could change this to break it out by day of week, but it's going to remain nested under the other group, right? And if I wanted to change the nesting of those groups, I could do that. For example, I could have it, grouped first by year or by day of week or whatever, just by changing the order of the column headers there, but I'm still going to have a nested structure. So now I've got a grouped first by year and then by region, right? But none of those things is what I want. What I want is two completely separate different groupings, the breakout by region over here on the left, and then the breakout by day of the week over here on the right. So this is where I've run into a roadblock, and I can't do that in the regular crosstab editor. So this is where I would consider then transitioning into a freehand table, which will give me more power, but also more complexity, right? So there's always a trade-off, right? It's, you can do extra stuff, but that extra stuff becomes either slightly more difficult to do, or in some cases, considerably more difficult to do. So let's see how we would do this. I'm going to put the crosstab back the way I had it initially, right? So basically like this. And so what I'm saying is this is as far as I can go using the basic crosstab tool, the basic crosstab editor. So what I'll do at this point, let me put this back to a normal size here. What I'll do at this point is I'll convert this crosstab into a freehand table. So I right-click on the crosstab and select Convert to Freehand Table. As I mentioned, I think the last webinar, this is a one-way conversion, right? So when you convert a table or a crosstab to a freehand table, you can't go back. So in other words, you can't do some freehand operations and then convert it back to a regular crosstab. Doesn't work that way. It's a one-way trip. Although, of course, you can always undo, right? So if you do that by accident, you can undo to get back to where you were, but you can't do a bunch of operations and then convert back to a regular crosstab and have all those operations still be present, right? So here we go. So I'm going to convert to freehand table, right? You can see that fundamentally nothing changed as far as appearance goes, but if I press the edit button now that this is a freehand table, I get the freehand table editor instead of the crosstab editor. Okay. And now it actually becomes fairly simple for me to create the structure that I want. Remember that I want basically a date grouping that will be a set of column headers to the right of the existing region column headers. So here, what I've clicked on, this is the existing region column header. You can see it says customer.region, and it has a little arrow pointing to the right that indicates that this is an expanding field that expands to the right, right? It has two values, USA East, USA West, and those two values basically expand to the right rather than vertically. So what I want to do here is I want to essentially put in a new field next to the existing field, a new rightward expanding field that will give me the days of the week. Okay, so what I do is I right-click on the table, this little table display here in the table editor, right-click, and I'll select Append column. Okay, this is something you can do in the Freehand table editor that you cannot do in the regular Crosstab editor, right? So here we're taking advantage of the features of the Freehand table editor. And so what will I do? Well, I want, here we've got in the middle cell, now I've got this expanding region column. What I want to put in this right top cell is an expanding date column. And so I can do that just by finding that field in my data source, right? So here it is, the order date, and I'll just drag that field into this cell. Right, so now I've got the order date field in this cell, and you can see if you look at the panel at the bottom, it's recognizing this as a grouping field, so basically it's grouping the order dates. But there are two things that we need to adjust here. First of all, if you look closely, and I don't know if you can see it on my screen, but you'll take my word for it maybe, there's an arrow next to the order date label here, and it's pointing down. Right, the reason it's pointing down is because over here in the expand cell region, right, this is set to vertical expansion. So that means that the different dates will expand vertically. That's not what I want. I want the different date groups to expand horizontally, right, because I want basically the days of the week expressed horizontally across the column headers. So the first thing I need to do is I need to change that expand cell option to horizontal. And then the arrow over there that I'm pointing at, that little arrow changes to point to the right, just like the arrow next to customer region. So that's number one. Number two is I need to change the date grouping level. As you'll recall, if you've been coming to these webinars, whenever you do any kind of date grouping, the default grouping is always by year, which is not what I want in this case. In this case, I want grouping by day of the week. So what I'll do is next to the group option over here, right down in the panel, press the edit button there. Right, and because this is a date field, I have this level option here, and I can change the level from year to day of week. Now, the question is, speaking of questions, there is a question. Did not see how you changed to horizontal. Okay, let me do that again. What I did is, it's over here. Hopefully you can see where my mouse is moving around. There's an option next to expand cell that says horizontal. Okay, so you want to change it from vertical to horizontal. Okay, hopefully you could see that. Okay, and then what I was about to do is I was going to change the grouping, so I pressed the edit button next to where the group check box is, press the edit button there, and change to day of week, which I actually did. And I was just going to say that, is that really a useful grouping? Well, maybe, maybe not. I just wanted to do that to introduce a little variety here since I never use that grouping level, so I thought that would be a little fun. So that's it. So now we've got the grouping. The only additional thing that we need to add is the measure, right? So we've got this empty cell here. If you'll notice, the corresponding cell under the customer region header is product total, and we want the same measure to be represented for the different date groups. So I'll just find the product total field. I could actually copy it from here and paste it in there, but it's just as easy to find that field over here. There's the product total, and just drag that field into that empty cell where I want the measure to appear. Okay, and that's basically going to be it. If you needed to change the aggregation method or something like that, you could find the edit button next to the summarize property over here, press that. That would give you the opportunity to change the aggregation method. But for now, we'll just leave it as sum. Okay, so basically, we've constructed a new kind of table, right, that has two completely independent groupings. Let's take a look at what this looks like in practice. So press the apply button. Make this a little bit wider. Okay, and so hopefully you can see that on my screen. I just made the Visual Composer larger. And this is basically what we have. Now we have two completely independent groupings. We have a grouping by region, and then we have grouping by day of the week. And so that's basically it for this example. The only other wrinkle that I had here in my example, in the slide, other than adding some colors, which I'll do in a moment, is I just had a range slider here so that the user can select a particular range and then see, compare sales on each day of the week for whatever range they select. So we'll add the range slider, add some color, and then we'll be done with that example. I see there's a question. Can you total the groupings is the question. Total the groupings. In other words, get a grand total? Is that what you're asking? Yeah, we should be able to get a grand total, so I'll try that also. That would be, I mean, you could do that in a, oh, I see, a grand total. So for example, a grand total just, either by region or day group. Let's try that. Yeah, we'll try that. So I'll try to do like by region or something like that. Okay, so we'll do that. So first let me just do the couple things that I had planned, and then I'll take a look at that. So back to Visual Composer here. So range slider, very easy. Just grab the date field, drag it in. That gives us a range slider. And this is just to make this application look a little bit more realistic, that that then what the user could do is they could take a look, for example, at a particular range of dates and see, okay, for that range of dates, where are my sales, on a day of the week basis, where am I, selling, maybe this would be some application where, maybe I don't know, maybe sales of clothing or something that have a particular cycle, daily or weekly cycle. You might want to see, how things are looking on every Sunday of a particular period of time versus every Monday of that same period of time. Anyway, you can use your imagination. Okay, so that's the range slider, and then the only other thing that I had done to make it match my example was just to add some different colors. So that's easy enough. Just select the header cells up here, and I made those, just gave those, some kind of, blue background maybe, and then select these header cells, give those some kind of alternate, color background so that it makes it more apparent to the user of this table that, there are two different things going on here, because otherwise, it'll be too easy for the user to look at this and just, see a whole glob of numbers, and, the color kind of distinguishes that there are two different things happening in this table. And then I also colored the column headers, which again is no big deal, just make some selections, add a color, and that's basically the result that I had in the slide. Now let's look at the total, see if we can get a total, let's say over here to the right of these columns. So I'll go back to the Crosstab editor, and what this means is that I need to introduce a new column. So I'll click over here and select Insert Column. Right? Oops, that's actually the wrong place. Let me undo that and go back here. Try again. Right, so I want the column to be over here to the left of this guy. So right click, insert column, and over here what I want this to be the total. So I'm going to just enter some fixed text in here, and we'll just say region total. And then let's see if we can get this to work. So I'm going to grab a product total and drag it into this cell here. Okay, and that might actually do it. We'll just have to see if this is expanding automatically with the category. Because really all I need is for this to expand downwards with the category, and it should give me the right numbers. So let's try it out. Okay, so let me make a little room here, see if these numbers look right. Okay, so here's a region total, and it does seem to be expanding downwards with the category, so I get a different total for each category. And do the numbers look right? They look okay. I'm not doing a detailed calculation here, but I'm just looking ballpark. The numbers seem to add up. So this is the total across those two guys. So that seems fine. So I can distinguish that with another color if I want to, something like I don't know, something like that. And you can also put borders if you need to put borders to help distinguish things. So something like I wonder if I can make a little bit more pronounced border. Let's see. Okay, so anyway, that's that's a little bit overkill, but you can add borders to make it a little bit more clear where the divisions are in the table. Okay, so any questions on that first kind of basic example of doing a freehand table? Okay, so let's take a look. Oh, there is a question. Can I sum the days? Okay, well, let's try to sum the days. Okay, so so I would do the same thing. Now, let me just see. Sum for all Sundays. I mean, it would be basically the same thing. In fact, the sum should be the same. The sum should end up being the same because this is all Sundays. Question? Oh, vertical. Oh, sum the days. Okay, so in other words, sum down this column. Okay, I got you. You know, actually, we're going to do that in the next example. So so let me save that, and I'll save this. If you want to come back and see it in this dashboard in particular, I can come back to this, but just for reasons of time, let me get on to the next example because I believe we're going to do exactly that. So I'll just save this as first example. Fine. So if for whatever reason, if when we do it in the next example, if it doesn't address your question, I can come back to this. Okay, if there's no other questions about that initial example, let's take a look at the next one, is this. So I want to create this kind of table. This is actually an example from our full training course, except that we do it in a report in that training course, but here I'll do it in a dashboard. You know, so why can't I do this just as a regular crosstab? Well, I can do part of it as a regular crosstab. I can create the structure, the row header structure over here, no problem, state and city. I can do that part. I can make these column headers here, break it out by category. I can do that part. I can, you know, add the two measures. I can do all that using pure basic crosstab. What I can't do is I can't add this kind of global header up here, right, that says categories up at the top. There's no way to do that in a regular crosstab. And also, if I want to have these labels here that appear in each column, I can't do that. I cannot do that in a regular crosstab, right? So to do those kinds of things, I need to use the freehand table. And we'll see if there's time, I'll also try to do some computation in this freehand table that also we could not do in a regular crosstab. So as before, I'm going to start with a crosstab. So let me open up a new view sheet just so we don't get confused here. Okay, new dashboard. And again, I'll start with a crosstab because that's the easiest way to do this rather than building it all from scratch as a freehand table, which you can do. It's easiest to start with something, so get as far as you can using the crosstab, the basic crosstab editor. In this case, we want customer state and city as the row header. So state, city. For the column header, I want the category, product category. And I want two measures, the quantity and the total. So quantity purchased and the total. And this is the basic crosstab. So you can see you can whip that up in about 45 seconds. Right, and so this gets us kind of 90% to where we want to be. It's a pretty big crosstab. You know, probably bigger than you would generally do for a dashboard. But anyway, that's, you know, whether or not you'd want to put something this big on a dashboard is a design decision that I would leave to you. But this is it. So this is the basic structure. All the data is here. Really, all we're going to use at least initially, all we're going to do with the freehand table is just make it look more like we want it. We want to have a global header that goes above these different categories and that says category. And we want to have these labels here. These labels are hard to see. I'll change them later. Actually, could probably change them now. So instead of sum quantity purchased, I'll just have it say amount. And instead of sum product total, just have that say total. Okay, that just makes a little bit clearer. But instead of having a single column with those labels, I want to have those labels next to each set of values. Okay, again, it's kind of a questionable decision whether that really would result in a better looking table, but you know, we'll see how to do it. And then you could decide if you want to do it or not. So let's go ahead, and at this point, because there's no way to do that using the basic Crosstab editor, we'll convert this to a freehand table. So right-click, convert to freehand table. You can see that the structure of the table remains the same. There is some change in the formatting because of the way that formats are saved. So when you do that kind of conversion, you may find that you need to reapply. If you had already applied some formats like bold or color or other things like that, sometimes when you do that conversion, those might get lost, right? So you could just go ahead and reapply them if you need to, right? So you can, select a cell and apply your formatting again. Okay, so now let's go into the editor, this time the freehand editor. Right, so you'll notice that we now have the freehand table editor. And what I want to do is I want to, first of all, introduce a new row above the existing categories. Right, so what I'll do is right-click on any cell in the top row and select Insert Row. Right, that adds just a blank row above everything. And then up here, I'm just going to enter the text Categories, just by clicking and typing, double-clicking and typing. Okay, so there's a cell up there now that says Categories. So let's take a look just at what the result of that is, and we'll see that there's some additional work that we need to do. So I'll press the Apply button here, right? And you can see that there is a change. Right now, I've got this additional row up at the top, and kind of strangely, in each column, it just says the word Categories, Categories, Categories. The reason is that the category cell, right, the cell where I put that text categories, is above this expanding cell. Remember that this product category cell that has the arrow next to it that indicates an expanding cell, right? It's expanding to give us each of the category values, and it's basically dragging along the cell above it, right? So because this cell here gets expanded, so the cell above it also gets expanded. So we'll have to correct that. And then the other thing is that you can see that we've got these blank cells over here. We could probably take care of those a little bit better by merging, for example, this cell with this cell, right? That will remove that blank cell over there. So let's take care of those two things. The more important thing is to get rid of the duplicate categories labels. So what I'll do is click on that category cell and then go to the Option tab at the bottom, and there's an option there called Merge Expanded Cells. Right, merge expanded cells. Now, in some cases, if there's a question about which direction to merge in or which group the merging should follow, there you can select a row group and a column group here. In this case, I don't think we need to. I think it will just do the right thing. So I'll just select Merge Expanded Cells and press Apply. Okay. And you can see then it basically takes all those expanded cells and merges them into a single cell. Whoops. I accidentally resized a column. All right, and then if you want to center that label there, you can just center it the same way that you always would. You could just select that cell and press Center Align in the toolbar at the top, and you can center that over the categories. So that looks much better. Now, as far as these cells over here, I said we could merge these. Right, so let's go back into the editor, to the freehand table editor, and what we'll do is we'll select the cells that we want to merge. So I'll select the state header cell and the blank cell above it. Now in this case, you might think that you do the same thing. You go to the option here and select Merge Expanded Cells, but just keep in mind that this is not an expanded cell, right? This is just a header. It just has some text in it. The expanding cell is the one below it, right? This customer.state cell has the arrow. This one that we want to merge with the cell above it is not an expanding cell, so that won't work over here. Instead, what we need to do is just right-click, select those two cells. Whoops. Try that again. Select those two cells and right-click and select Merge Cells. Right, we're just merging two physical cells together. Right, they're just two regular ordinary cells, and the same thing over here. Select these two cells and merge these together. Okay, and then if we take a look at this, right, so now those pairs of cells have been merged. And again, as far as alignment goes, right, we can we can select these and right-click and they're already center aligned over here, but I might choose to also align them vertically. So there is no vertical alignment button in the toolbar here. So what I would do, just as I would ordinarily do for any table, is select these, select right-click, select Format, go to Align, and then choose the vertical alignment here and just do Vertical Align Middle. And that will help those align to the center of the cell. Okay, I can change those column headers, of course. So if I go back into the editor here, and instead of customer.state, maybe I just want that to say state. So I can just double click and type there, and instead of customer.city, I can have this say city. Okay, so we're pretty close to done with the aesthetic improvements that we want to make here. The remaining aesthetic improvement is that we wanted to have these amount and total labels displayed next to each category's numbers. Right, so again, we go back into the Crosstab editor. And basically what we want to do is we just want to merge together these two cells. Right, so right now, this is where the quantity and the total are being, these are the quantity and total labels. Right, and so if I merge the cell above those together with the product category cell, then they should expand together with the product categories. Right, so I'm going to select these two cells and merge these two physical cells. Right click, merge cells. Right, so this should have the effect now that when this product category cell expands, it should carry along with it these two cells over here, which have that text in them. Well, let's see if it does. Press the apply button. Right, and you can see it does. Right, it also messed up our previous, our previous work up over here. So now it got us back to, this repeated categories header. So we'll have to fix that. But you can see that the main effect is that now I have these amount and total labels in each category next to the corresponding values. Okay, so let's fix the problem and then just see if we can add some formatting to make this look a little bit more readable. So to fix the problem, just go back into the editor here, and basically all we have to do is merge these two cells together. Right click, merge cells. Right, and I think we still, for this category cell up here, if we go to option, we still have merge expanded cells turned on. So now, even though it's expanding along with the product category field below it, all the expanded cells for this guy will be merged together into a single cell. So that should get us back to a better view. Okay, let me just make this a little bit bigger so we can see a little bit better what's going on. There's a question. Hold on a second. Oh, it's a hand up. Somebody has their hand up. I don't know who. Okay. Well, if somebody had a question, type the question in the box. I thought I saw a hand go up, but I can't tell who that was. Okay, so this is what we have so far. Not too shabby. Let's go ahead and just see if we can add a little bit more formatting to make it easier to read. So I'll add some color to the headers. For example, the state, city, and categories header. I can make those, for example, some shade of blue. And these the actual category headers, I can make some shade of green. Right? It gives just to give some some visual structure to the table. And in the example, the picture that I have here, they also have borders around each, basically around each group, each subgroup. Is that an improvement or not? I don't know. To me, it looks a little bit intense. But if you did want to do that, you could add borders. You could, for example, select this cell and add a left border. Add a left border here. Add a bottom border. Didn't get the bottom border. It's not picking up the bottom border. That's interesting. Maybe if I do it from the format dialog box. That's interesting. It's not picking up the bottom border. I wonder why. Let me try one more time. It seems to have the border here. Not going to spend too much time on this. It should work, but it seems not to be applying that border. Okay. Anyway, so I'll just leave it like this, and it makes it clear enough. But that should work. I'll have to look into why that border is not applying. Question. Top from the cell below. Top from the cell below. I assume you're trying to tell me how to do it. I don't quite understand. Top. Oh, I see what you're saying. Add the top from the cell below. So in other words, do something like this. Format and add. Like this. All right. So okay, that's a way to do it. Thank you. So, and then I could do the same thing here. All right, except there, then I accidentally removed the. All right, so this. Let me just back it up a little bit. Okay, so we got that. So for this one, we want this one needs the bottom, but the bottom one. So this one needs the top. Sorry, I feel like I'm taking too much time on this, but let me just. This guy needs the top. This guy doesn't need the top. I don't know how this guy got the top, but I'm just going to stop with the borders. You get the idea. Perhaps it's not as intuitive as it should be, but you can add borders to improve the appearance here. I think I'll just let me just back up to a point where it looked a little bit better. Let's go backwards here. Okay, that looked. I think that was the best that I had it. So so I'll just leave it like that for a second. So that basically gets us pretty much to where the example picture had it here. Obviously, there's a few less borders, a few more borders. You could play around with the borders. Right. So sorry, I was just reading Jim's last comment. So any questions on the basics of this before we do a little bit more here beyond just the formatting? Okay, so let's do a little bit more with the data. And what I want to do here is I'm going to put a grand total at the bottom. And I think this is what Jim asked about earlier. Maybe it was less, I'm not sure. So what I want is basically a total of the amounts and the totals for each category. Right? You can see that right now there is no grand total at the bottom, so that's what I want to add. That's the next step here. So what I'll do here is go back to the Freehand table editor, and I'm going to add 2 new rows down at the bottom because I want one row that will give me basically the summed totals and another row that will give me the summed amounts. All right, so I'll right-click on any cell in the bottom row here and select Insert Rows Columns and do 2 columns after the selection. Oh, sorry. That was a mistake. Sorry, my brain turned off for a minute. What I want is 2 rows, right? Not 2 columns. Okay, so again, select any cell in the bottom row, insert rows columns, and 2 rows after the selection. Okay, so I've got 2 rows down at the bottom. Now these 4 cells over here, I'm going to combine these all together and just put some static text in there that says grand total. So that's easy enough. Select those cells, right-click, merge cells, and then just throw some text in there that says grand total. Okay, and then as far as these cells go, over here, these 2 cells, these are just going to be the labels, just like these ones up over here, just give me the labels, right? So here I'm going to put amount, and here total. And then really the only thing remaining is just to put the measures in here. And the only thing that we need to look out for here is just whether when we drop the measure in here, just make sure that that it's expanding correctly with the category. In other words, that we're getting the totals category by category. Now that should happen automatically, right? So because it's the only sensible thing here, we've got these cells are under an expanding category cell, so they should basically they should automatically get grouped by that category. So the totals, whatever field we choose to total in here, should be totaled according to or aggregated according to the category. But in the event that that doesn't happen automatically, what we can do is we can select a row group or column group as appropriate to make sure that that happens. But I believe it will happen automatically. So let's grab the, well, that's interesting. I have duplicate entries over here on the left. customer, product, product. Okay, never saw that before, but hopefully that won't cause us a problem. Lucky I'm recording this, so I can just show the video to someone. Expand product, find my total field, and I'm going to put that over here next to the total label, and find my quantity purchased field and put that next to the amount label. And you can see that for row and column group, it's set to default. And generally, in a simple case like this, it should do the right thing, but of course we'll check. And if it doesn't do the right thing, then, for example, we can explicitly specify that the column group should be the product category, for example. We could select product category or whatever the appropriate group is that the total should be aggregated according to. Okay, so let's see what the result of this is. I have to scroll down to the bottom. Okay, so there's a grand total. That's some static text, and of course I can format that and make it look a little bit better. Okay, and if I want to center it better. Okay, so and then down over here, I'm not going to worry about the borders at this point because I feel like if I try to start playing with the borders again, it cost me another 10 minutes. So here you can see that we've got our labels, amount and total, and then these should be category by category the sums, right? So if it's kind of hard to eyeball. Obviously, what you would want to do if you were doing this for real, there's a question, I'll get to that in a second. If you were doing this for real, what you'd want to do is actually total up these numbers, make sure that they total to what you have at the bottom, right? That's what you would want to do. I think they do, and that gives us the result that we're after. Let's see what the question was. Toolbar. Oh, there's a question. Is vertical centering on the roadmap for future? Oh, is it on the roadmap for the toolbar? I guess you're asking. I don't know that there's a feature. The question is to put, so right here I centered the grand total, I centered it horizontally and vertically. You can see the horizontal centering is on the toolbar, but the vertical centering is not. I'm not aware that there's a feature to put that on the toolbar. It would be nice, however, so if you want to shoot me an email, I can certainly submit a feature that it really shouldn't be too big a deal, and it would be that would be a nice thing. Sure. Okay, so that's basically how you would add the grand totals down at the bottom. It's not that much of a big deal. If I'm feeling bold here, I can try to add some borders. Okay, and then we'll try. Oh, that's good enough. Okay, I'm going to stop there with the borders. And of course, as far as alignment goes, alignment seems to work a little bit easier. Can only select one cell at a time. I'm not sure why. Okay, so we've got our totals, and of course, if you wanted to distinguish this bottom row using color or something like that, you can do that. It's interesting that it doesn't let me select more than one cell at a time. So anyway, I guess I would have to go cell by cell and apply the color that I want if I want to distinguish that bottom row using other colors. Really, I should be able to select multiple cells at the same time, but it seems to not be allowing me to do that. Oops, that was the wrong color. Okay. Okay, so that's basically the end of this table. Now, let me check how much time I have. See if I should wrap up here, or if I should do one more thing. At the risk of running into trouble, let me do one last thing here, and then I'll do one last thing here. If anybody needs to go, I've covered most of what I wanted to cover. I just want to show you one more advanced thing, which is that you can insert formulas, actual formulas, into these cells. You may have noticed that when you're in the editor here, that there is a formula option down here. So I just want to give you an example of what that, what that could be used for. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to display, so I've got the total here, right? This is the total for each category. Let's say that I want to display the percent that total represents of the top selling category. In other words, the top selling category, I'll spoiler alert, the top selling category is business, I think, if I recall correctly. Right. So what I would like to do is for each category, I'd like to show what percent of the top selling category is represented by that category. In other words, what percent of business sales does games have, for example? In other words, does games sell just 1% of what business sells, or is it more like 40%? Right. So that's that's the kind of thing that I want to do. Is that really meaningful? That's not the that's not the point here. The point is to see how you could do it. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, there's a couple of different ways I could do this, but let me make it as complicated as I can. And so what I'll do is I'm going to add another table up here that will basically give me the ranked categories, right? And that's easy enough to do, right? So I'm moving this table down, and over here I'm just going to add a new table, a new crosstab, and this is going to be a very simple one. Right, so it's just going to have as the row header the product category, and over here the total. And I'm just going to sort these categories by the total. Right, so click on the category field, and I want to sort these descending by value, or by value descending according to the total. Right, so this table, this crosstab, is going to have a list of categories from the top selling category to the least selling category. Right, so there's the result. Let me make this a little bit smaller because really we're only interested in that top row there. Right, so basically I just kind of sorted the categories by the totals. Right, and you can see that business is the top selling category. And I'm going to give this table a meaningful name here. I'll just call it category table. Okay, category table. And I'm going to remember what that name is, I hope. Okay, so I'll call that, the name of that table is category table. And now what I want to do is I want to add a new cell down here that will basically look into that table and pick off that top selling category, because I want that number, right? Obviously, if I'm going to compute the percent represented by each category's total sales, the percent of the top selling category, I need to know what the value of that top selling category is. Now, the truth is, I could actually get it out of this table also, right? It's because here it is over here, right? But I haven't explicitly sorted this table, and also I wanted to show you how you could reference values in a different table. So, like I said, there are different ways to go about this. In this case, we're going to reference the value from a different table. So let's go ahead and see if we can pull this off. I'm going to go back to the Freehand table editor here, and I'm going to add a new row down at the bottom. Right, so add, where is it? Append row. Okay, and here I'll add a label, and I'll have this say, PCT of top cat. That's pretty verbose, but can't think of anything better. These guys I can merge together. Right, so I don't need a blank row over there, so I'll just merge those cells together. And then over here, let me start off by just putting in there, just see if I can write a formula that will actually get me that top value. All right, so this is not going to get me all the way there, but let me just demonstrate if I can actually pick off this value from the other table. Now, what was the name of that table? It was called, I forgot already. It was called category table, perhaps. Let me double check. What was the name of this table? Category table, right? So I said I need to remember that, but I didn't. Okay, so what I'm going to do is click this cell, right? This is where I want to put the formula. Go down here, select formula, and to access a value in a different table, you use the name of the table. So category, whoops, you have to spell it right. Category table is the name of this table up here. So if I want to access data from that table, I need the table name, and then I use the syntax .table. Okay, so .table means look into that table. And in this case, I'm just going to use the row and column index here, and I'll see if I can get this right. So it should be, that should be the second column, sorry, the second row, which is index 1, and the second column, which is also index 1. Okay, so basically what I want is the value in the second row, second column. So you may wonder why I'm not using the index 2 for the second row, second column. That's because indexing starts from 0. So I think I've got it right here, but we'll find out in just a moment. And so what this is saying, if I get the indexing wrong, I'll just change it. What this is saying is look into the category table, look into the data in there, and get me the value from the second row, second column. There are other ways to index into a table, but for this example, I'll just leave it like this, keep it simple, press apply, and let me see what I got down at the bottom. Right? So if you look at this number that comes back in the cell, you can see that it is, in fact, referencing the value out of that table over there. Right? So 8093500, it's that value, and it now appears in each of those cells. Right? Now that's not exactly what I want. There's no point to just repeating that value again and again, but this is just an incremental step. Now I know that I can get that value, and now what I need to do is basically divide the actual category value. Right, so for example, for the educational category, I want to divide 625,500, that's the total for educational, divide that by the value of the top category, which is 8093500. So I'm almost there. What I need to do is go back into the Freehand table editor, and before I can modify this formula to do the division, what I need to do is I need to be able to reference this cell in the formula. Right, this is the category by category total in this cell, right? So to reference a cell, I'm going to need the cell name, right? Now you'll notice that there is a default cell name. Here it is, right? If you click on a cell, many cells are given a default name. That's just the way when you're building a freehand table, it automatically assigns names to cells. Now this is a very clunky name, although I could use this. I could refer to the cell by this name, but maybe I'll just give it a simpler name. So something like cat total. Cat total. And this time I'll actually copy it so I don't have to remember it. Right, so cat total is how I'm going to refer to that cell. Right, so with that change, now I can go back over here and modify the formula. And so the formula is going to be, right, it's cat total. Right, so I know this is hard to see on my screen. Let me just space it out so you can. So basically, I'm referencing the value from this cell, the one that has the actual total for each category, and I reference that with a $sign. That means a $sign is basically indicates that what follows is the name of a cell. So $sign and then the name of the cell, cat total, that says get the value out of that cell there, and I'm dividing that by the total for the top selling category of business. So what I should end up with is in each column is the ratio of the actual category sales to the top selling category of business. All right, so let's see if that result comes through. All right, so press apply, scroll down again. Okay. And if you take a look at the values now, I know it's probably hard to see on your screen, but you can see that in the column for business, that value is 1. Right? The reason that's 1 is that the total for business is 100% of the total for business, right? Business is the top selling category, so the category of business is 100% of itself. For the other categories, you'll notice that the value is something less than 1. For example, here 0.09, for example, here 0.112. Right? If you want to represent those as percentages, you could just click on one of those cells and go up and select the percent style, right? And then those get represented as percentages, and of course you can align it to look a little bit better, and so on. Right, and so now what I have is down at the bottom of each of the categories, not only do I have the total sales in the category, but it also tells me the percent that that category represents of the top selling category. Right, so I can see that hardware, for example, is pretty much up there. It's, you know, it sells more than half of what the category business sells. Whereas, you know, if you look at the category educational, it's way down. Right? Educational only sells 8% of what the category of business sells. You know, so if I was looking at this as an analyst or something, and I was looking for, you know, where do we really need to boost sales, you know, I would say, whoa, that's way down there. Okay, again, you can you know, might be saying to yourself, well, that's a really strangely concocted indicator. Like, who would ever want to, you know, represent that? Right, so, you know, maybe it is, but the main point was just to show you that, first of all, how in a freehand table you can reference values from another table in the dashboard, and how you can use these kinds of formulas like we saw here, that reference values out of other tables and that do computations based on data within the same table by referencing the name of individual cells. Okay, so I'm gonna leave this here since I've used up all my time. So I'll just end, and if there's any questions, feel free to fire away. I know at least I forgot Les had a question. I forgot who. I know somebody had a question. Oh, good. You're welcome for the extra example. Any questions on anything that we covered in the webinar? I think Jim or Les had something that they were going to ask me at the end, but if anybody did have a question on any freehand table topics, be happy to take it. Otherwise, okay, for those of you who are going to sign off and who don't have questions, I'll let you go. So have a great weekend and happy holidays, and you'll probably be getting a revised list of topics for next year at some point. So I'll hope to see you all back next year for some more exciting topics. So if anybody does have a question and is still formulating it, I'll just hang out here for another minute. But for the other folks, take care and Happy New Year. Okay, looks like everybody's good. If anybody wants to ask me anything via email, feel free. Otherwise, Happy New Year and see you back next year.